Hey guys, welcome back to Optimize, the Infinifactory walkthrough. This is the last video I have that's going to be levels from the game. I might continue on doing a couple of tips and tricks levels, or a couple of custom puzzles from the Steam Workshop. We'll see. But for this level, we're starting off with the plasma engine in the Homeward Fleet tab. So, the plasma engine looks like this. We've got the two rockets, and then the attacher for them, and this giant metal casing to go on the outside. So I kind of built them as two separate parts and then push them together at the end. So let's start off with the rockets and the casing. The casing comes in these metal blocks, and it takes two of them, or not casing, well, I don't know what you want to call it, fuel tank, maybe? I don't know. But it takes two of the metal blocks to make one of these. So, coming out, they stack up here, and then this giant wall of eviscerators pushes forward and cuts out the middle. So as you can see, there's two layers pushed out and then one here for this little plug thingy. So this plug comes along here and triggers a moving welder here to weld it on when it gets to the end, and also triggers this eviscerator wall pusher right here to cut out the two holes to attach the main engines. So, they fall in, and as soon as the second one falls in, this wall pushes forward, and then the whole thing gets moved out. So then as the plug moves in, the welder starts going, and when it gets back to the end, the pusher pushes the entire little block thing on its merry way. Let's see that happen again. So this block gets the middle hollowed out, then the plug goes and triggers the eviscerator, and this little welder I built here. Okay, so what do we have next? Next we've got these engines from down here. And basically I hold one of them, and then the next one that comes through, well, yeah, I hold one of them, and then when they eventually get through, they are turned sideways, so they're ready to go, and pushed up. And then they're just stacked up on top of each other, like they're going to be at the end. And the main block that they're attached into falls down here and moves along, and when it's ready to have them welded to it, I've got another articulated welding on here that moves forward and welds in that block to that block and that block to that block, and then pushes the whole thing forward to go on its way. So there we've got the two engines, and the main block falls down here and moves over, triggers the welder, and the welder pushes it forward and welds in the two engines. And then the whole thing continues on until it gets over here and meets up with the casing. So now I'm going to show you how the casing is built. The casing is basically 4 panels and then an extra smaller one in the middle. So we've got a 3 by, I think it's 17 panel on the top and the bottom, and then 2 3 by 17 panels on the sides, and a 2 by 16 panel right in between them. So that's what this whole thing builds up here. Basically, the blocks are pushed out and welded together to make lengths of 17, and then half of them go up to the and form the sides, and half of them stay on the bottom and form the top and the bottom. And then once we've got a finished top and a finished bottom, 2 shorter ones are made to be on the sides. So let me show you how that looks. So we get lengths of a full 17. And we're forming our side panels and our top and bottom panels. And then when those are all finished, they move out. And this trigger right here forces us to create 2 8 length rows, and yeah, I guess they'd be called rows. So then those form together to make the 16 length that goes in the middle. So that's our side panel, and the top and bottom panels are just kind of sitting here waiting for the side to get welded on. And again, I've got another articulated welding arm here. When the top part of the side panel falls in, it just moves sideways, welds the whole thing together, and pushes it off the little holding platform right there. So then we've got a completed casing, which moves over to here and just meets up with the main engine. And another moving welding arm to weld them together and pull them forward to the exit. So let's see that again. The main casing moves up here and triggers those sensors, causing the blocker here to stop blocking and allows the main engine piece to move forward. And the blocker there is blocking this little plug. So once that moved into place, it triggers the sensor there, and that causes this welding arm to move forward and pull the whole thing into place. And that's how that works. What are we at? 4 left? Alright, so that's the fusion engine, I believe is what I call it. Plasma engine, sorry. Next up we have the fire control system. I would say this is probably one of the harder levels in the game because it is so different from the rest of them. In this level, you are under attack in your ship, and you need to build the weapons firing system. So you are taking munitions pieces, and you need to build rockets, and you need to fire munitions, I would assume like gun turrets or something. So there's 2 kinds of weapons. There's the rockets, which take down ships, which show up on the outer area of this map. And then there's the munition canisters, which you feed in, and they will take out lasers and rockets and mini ships that are inside this area. And you need to not only produce them, but you need to decide when and where to fire them, which is the difference from all the other levels. In all the other levels, you've got an input and you've got an output, and you just make as many as you can as fast as you can. In this one, you don't necessarily feed them all out as fast as you can. If you want to complete this tube, and you collect 4 missiles, which are assembled like so, and them into the tubes. But that doesn't work because there is a fixed input rate. It cannot be sped up, and it is too slow for that to work. So, the simple part is creating the missiles. Easy. We all know how to create missiles like that. But then there's that. So these things will show up and fire at us. We need to deal with it. And if we don't, the ship will be destroyed and you will lose the level and have to try again. So, that's where all of these wires come in, all over the place. First of all, what I have set up is munitions here will collect and they will just stack up here. And then when you trigger this pusher, it'll push the top one out and it'll get loaded into one of these 4 canisters, depending. So what does it depend on? There's a pusher here and a pusher here, and a pusher here. So if this is extended, the munitions will go into the top row. If it is not extended, they'll fall down and go into one of the bottom tubes. Then there's the pusher here, or the blocker here on top and on bottom. And that will either cause the munition to go into the far tube or the close tube. And that's determined by if it's blocked or not. So the top conveyor belt will try to push it along the path. And for some reason, the upside down conveyor belts take precedence over the, over the normal ones. So if this is unblocked, it will always try to continue on and go into this second tube, same on the bottom. If it is blocked, it will go into the front tubes. So that leaves ways to choose which one of these 4 tubes the munitions are fed into. And that's what I've got these 4 switches set to. So if you trigger this switch, they're 1, 2, 3, 4, just like on the screen. So this switch will toggle only the pusher here. If you toggle number 1, they will go into, it'll stay on the top and get blocked by the blocker. If you toggle number 2, oopsie. By the way, I should have mentioned, toggle switches are new in this level. They show up right down here. This is, I believe this is the only level we're given them, and they're used for what I'm using them for. You can toggle an electrical conduit on or off. I should have mentioned that. So 1 and 2 will both toggle the pusher to make sure blocks go on the top. 2, however, will also trigger this blocker here, and that'll allow blocks to go through into the tube number 2. Likewise, the number 4 will toggle the one on the bottom, and number 3 toggles nothing. I just left it there just to kind of make it easier, because the idea is you stand over here and toggle these switches and fight the battleships and not have to worry about what's going on behind you. So then I've got a very, very similar setup on this side with the rockets. They're assembled, and they go through here, they fall down, and they get pushed up, and they just kind of stack up here. And then this pusher will push them forward, and they'll either fall back down and go onto this belt, or if this is extended, they will go across the top and onto the top belt, and then there's a blocker to stop them from going into 3 or 1, and otherwise they'll go into 2 or 4. So I've got a similar setup with the switches over here. They're all wired up likewise, so that logically when you flip a switch, the necessary things are triggered. So then there's these 2 switches in the front, and those are my main firing switches. At first, I set this up so that it would be constantly firing at whatever is triggered, or in whichever port is triggered, but the best way to take down the ships is to fire a bunch of missiles at them at once, so that's why I stock them up. I stack them up, and then when I flip this switch, it unblocks this blocker, and I've got this platform block, which just kind of goes in on this conveyor belt loop. And there's 2 sensors here, so after it's traveled 4 blocks, it will trigger a sensor, and that will trigger this pusher right here. So if I trigger this, and I've got a similar setup on the other side, I'll show you. If I trigger these and then start it up, that just travels around and causes this to automatically push. Same thing with this one. This one's a little faster. I've just got a little 6. So over here you can see I'm being fired at, and I'm taking damage, and I'm firing stuff at quadrant 4. If I flip this switch, it will start firing at quadrant 2. Likewise, if I flip this one, it will take out missiles in quadrant 2 using the munitions. So the idea here is you fight and you do not die. So I'm going to start this over, because the best I could do is lasting to about half health. Oops, I did not mean to start that over. So I'm going to start with these off and let the missiles and munitions stack up so that I can fire them as needed. And I know the first ship is going to show up in quadrant 2. This is the same every time. And if I've got multiple of these toggles flipped, it'll end up going to one of them. I don't know which one. So I like to turn one on, turn the other on.
A lone missile cruiser has entered our space.
So now I've started firing the munitions, and there you can see. And I've got a bunch of those toggle or set up to fire, so I'm going to fire 4 of them. And there you can see I've got 4 of them in a very quick burst there, ready to go and take out the ship. And it destroyed one of them, which is why you want to fire them in bursts. Okay, so as soon as this last one is destroyed, I want to turn that off. And you've noticed I have started firing up to quadrant 4, which is because this is stacked up as far as it can get, and when a new one shows up, it pushes one to quadrant 4. That's fine. I feel that much. And it actually turns out in my favor, because as soon as the ship shows up, all the things down there. So then I can turn that one back on, start firing at the various different quadrants. And I want to that one, and that one. And you're going to get hit by some of these missiles that are waiting for them all. So you just got to not get hit by as many as possible and try to now we've got one down there. And these are carriers, so they don't fire missiles. They have these little ships come out, and those ones will get into my airspace and try to attack me. Okay, so now we want to fire up there.
They're taking everything they have left.
And we want to stop these missiles from hitting me, if possible. Now we just need to fire up that corner and they've all been destroyed. At this point, I'm just firing stuff as fast as possible. That's everything.
I am detecting no more enemy cruisers. I think we are victorious.
Well, I'll be damned.
Super
you
proud.
did it. I am super proud of you that
So
we
yeah,
are
that's
not
the attack
space
level.
pancakes. Oh, space pancakes. Anyway, yeah, no,
Kind of a
why don't we
unique
just get the
level.
hell out of here before something else
Yeah.
goes wrong?
I guess it's possible to beat it a bit faster, definitely smaller footprints and stuff, but this is the way I chose to do it. And finally, we have the skip drive, the final level of this game. And you look at this thing and you go, what the hell? Ick. These things are not user-friendly to build. Not at all. This is probably, in my opinion, one of the hardest levels of the game, which is fitting because it's the final level. So what are we looking at? We've got crosses pieces on the sides and on the top and the bottom, and then we've got these slanty pieces on the top and the bottom and the sides. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different kinds of pieces right there. And then we've got the middle top and bottom piece and the core in the middle. And that's all the different pieces, and they are fed to us in kind of a haphazard fashion. So we get our core and the side slanty pieces here, and the top and bottom crosses there, and the left-right crosses here, and then the core top and bottom, and then the top and bottom slanty pieces here. And I just dealt with it. It's messy. It's really messy, but it works. So let's go one section at a time. First thing I did was I set up the core to be built. Core is actually not that hard to do. You take the core pieces, you drop them down here. The middle piece drops in, and the top piece drops in, and they're all welded together. Simple. And that goes off and gets welded on. So next up, we've got to decide how we're going to weld this thing together. It's really hard to weld things on a bottom like this, because there is no vertical welder that points up, as far as I know. And if there is, I've been playing this game wrong the entire time, and a lot of these would have been a lot easier for me. So I opted to weld the core onto the top. A welder straight down through the middle, and then another one on one of the sides of this top block here. So that's fairly simple. And then I decided to make the bottom and the middle and the top all separately. So we've got our mechanism here to make the top, our mechanism here to make the bottom, and one over here to make the middle. And then the middle gets welded onto the bottom, and the core gets welded onto the top, and they meet up over here, and and the whole thing gets put together. I have hiccups today. So let's take a look at how the top works. So these are our top pieces. These are the ones we want to look at. They fall down here, and we count them up, and they get pushed off into various locations. And once they are all in, these pushers retract, or these blockers retract, and the whole thing can fall down. So the first one goes all the way around here, onto the back, I guess, from the perspective of where you start. The second one is the side, and the fourth one, or the third one, is easy, it just falls right in here, and the fourth one is this side. These are kind of weird to deal with due to their strange shape. Okay, so that's the top. That then falls down here and meets up with the finished core. So the core sits there and waits. The top pushes it back, moves in place, and then it actually just welds itself and moves off over here. And I hold one of them because it's produced a lot faster than the bottom is. So next up, we have the bottom and the ring on the middle. So the bottom is actually a fairly similar setup. The slanting pieces for the bottom. Oh, I should mention the crosses for the top. The cross for the top comes from over here, and it's just kind of an every other thing with this sensor here. So anyway, the slanting pieces for the bottom fall onto this belt, and they move along over to here. And I've got the same kind of setup where the first one ends up all the way on the back. The second one ends up on the side. The third one ends up right here, and the fourth one is this side. And then the middle connector piece is already there, so they all just kind of connect onto it once they show up. And there's a blocker on the bottom that allows them to go. Kind of weird to deal with due to their shape. They're kind of a zigzag of blocks, I think, if you were to look at how they were welded together in terms of if you were building one of these zigzag pieces. Okay, so we're making our bottom, we've got our top, we've got our core, and now we just have the ring around the outside. So the ring takes these vertical cross pieces from over here, and we get kind of an every other one kind of thing again. One for the left, one for the right, one for the front, one for the back. So, not only are we doing every other one that's turned, every other one in the of each orientation goes somewhere different. So we get one, comes in here, drops down, and is that side. The other one goes all the way across and is the one opposite. And then same thing with the ones that have been turned. One of them gets moved up and over, and the other one just kind of drops right in. And then there's these side pieces, and basically I hold them back for as long as I can, and then I do another one of these sensor pusher block setups where the first one goes through, the second one gets pushed there, third one gets pushed there, fourth one gets pushed there. And those just get oriented, yeah, and fall into place where they need to be. The first one rotated around, dropped in. Second one is already passed. Second one gets rotated and also dropped in. Third one is the one that also, yep, third one gets rotated. Fourth one's the one that doesn't get rotated at all. And they all fall down here and get welded in and fall through as one big piece. So then, I want to show you guys how the end works here. So then we've got the final piece, or the final welding, putting the whole thing together. So, the bottom and the middle get welded together here. And they move over and go up and over this red bar here. Meanwhile, the top comes in and drops in. The top goes up, and then it goes up even more, and just gets dropped right in and welded on right there. And then it moves forward, and here I got a little bit stuck because there's no way to cause this thing to travel all the way to the middle with a belt unless you drop it in from the top. So it gets stuck here, and I've got a moving arm, and it just pushes it in the rest of the way. So as soon as this switch triggers here, it just moves forward and pushes it in, and that is the end. So this one is just kind of parts everywhere, because there are a lot of parts for these jump cores, or skip drives. Skip drives is what they're called. But, I mean, it's average solution speed, so works for me. And judging by the fact that most of my footprint and block score average have been a lot higher than the averages, I'm guessing that I am way overcomplicating this, but that's okay by me, because I made it work. And that's the point of the game, which I finished. That is the end. That was the last level of the game. Then you get to see the mission conclusion, which I'm actually not going to show you guys. Yeah, because if you guys want to see it on your own, that's that. So that's it for this video, and maybe for this series. We'll see if I want to do some Steam Workshop puzzles, but otherwise, see you guys on one of my other series.